It occurred to me that you might not be aware of some of the major contexts going on around politics and social reform in 19th century Russia. That's no flaw of yours, really. Um, so I wanted to briefly mention that the main discussions that are going on regularly um, among Levin and his circle are they're all about the aftermath of the emancipation of the serfs that takes place in 1861. The Tsar Alexander um, decides that it's best to initiate that reform from the central government rather than wait for some sort of disruptive revolution. And the years and decades after the liberation of the serfs are largely spent trying to compensate and cope with that new agricultural reality. And also represent a slight shift away from agriculture as the central industry. Um, and there's some urbanization and industrialization going on, although not nearly so dramatic um, as we see in Western Europe. So when Levin is talking about his theory and philosophy of the Russian peasant having a peculiar character, what's really being discussed there is, so what do we do with this newly freed population that can now, in theory, move about as it likes, and that you have to hire as day laborers instead of just assuming that they will give you their labor as part of their medieval contract with you. Um, so, and for that matter, the systems of representation, of local representation, of government, of election that we see in the latter parts um, of the novel are also 19th century innovations, and they're being tweaked and developed, and they're often initiated as accommodations to people who are more liberal or progressive, democratic, really. So that's the context for what we're talking about here. And you can tell that Levin, who is often in his ideas a stand-in for Tolstoy, has, in many respects, more conservative views than the people around him. He's not a progressive or a liberal in the traditional sense. Um, but that isn't necessarily looked down on in this novel. His conservatism seems to arise in part from his affection and love for the peasantry and for the country and his sense of duty to the land. Um, so those things are positively connoted for the most part. Anyway, I thought that might help you a little bit.